Mahabharata, Chapter 4, The Pandavas at Hastinapur. Read by Nirvan Bajaj and Ikveer Bajaj. Mahabharata, Chapter 4, The Pandavas at Hastinapur. Ved Vyasa's epic on the Bharat race was first recited in public by his disciple Vaishampayan at the behest of Vyasa himself. This recital took place in the august presence of King Janamjaya, great-grandson of the grandson of Vyasa, and the many learned sages who had assembled for Janamjaya's Sarpasatra. The third session of a rendering of Vaishampayan's recital of Vyasa's Mahabharata described the marvelous births of the Pandavas and the Kauravas and the death of Pandu and Madri. It ended with the ascetics of Shatashring leaving with Kunti and the Pandavas for Hastinapur. Vaishampayan then continued. When Kunti and the entourage arrived at the portals of the city of Hastinapur, the rishis asked the guards to inform the king of their arrival. The guards lost no time in conveying the message. The citizens of Hastinapur were surprised to hear of the arrival of the large group of rishis and bards. Men and women of all castes thronged the streets, some on foot, some on vehicles, all eager to see the visitors. The concourse, though vast, was peaceful because it was orderly and free from scuffle. Then there came Bhishma, Dhritarashtra, Vidur, Satyavati, Ambika, Ambalika, Gandhari, and other ladies of the royal household, and the sons of Dhritarashtra adorned with jewels and ornaments. The Kauravas bowed to the rishis, and the citizens prostrated themselves before the holy group. Then Bhishma welcomed them with befitting honor and placed at their disposal the wealth that was the kingdom. Then the oldest of the rishis, with matted locks and clad only in deerskin, spoke thus for all them. Pandu, the king and the sovereign chief of the Kurus, renouncing worldly pursuits, came to Shatashring mountains to lead the life of brahmachari. For reasons divine, there, this eldest son Yudhishthira, begotten by the grace of Dharma himself, was born to Kunti. Then the great king obtained Vayu through Kunti, this other son, mighty Bhimsena. And then this son, Arjun, destined to be supreme among archers, was begotten by Indra. And these two, the twins Nakul and Sahadev, begotten by the twin Ashwins, were born to Madri. The birth, Vedic studies and well-being of these sons of Pandu should be a matter of satisfaction to you. It is now 17 days after the death of Pandu and after the self-immolation of Madri on his pyre. There lie the charred remains of the couple. Let the required rites be conducted for their salvation, and let Kunti and the sons of Pandu be accorded all honors due to them. And the company of ascetics and bards vanished as if never was, leaving the beholders in wonder. Dhritarashtra then said to Vidur, Do not grieve for Pandu, who lived as a worthy king and has left 5 noble sons behind. O Vidur, I charge you to oversee the funeral rites of Pandu and Madri, conducted befitting their regal status. Let cattle, cloth and precious gems be distributed freely in the name of Pandu and Madri, and let the last rites of Madri be conducted as Kunti would have it. After consulting Bhishma, Vidur selected a sacred spot for the last rites of Pandu. The courtiers and the citizens then covered with flowers the bier which carried the remains of the king and his consort, and decked it with rich hanging and fragrant garlands. The buyer was carried away from the city by men, and the cortege was led by priests to the accompaniment of dirge and drums. Commoners followed the cortege, lamenting loudly.
"O king, where have you gone, leaving us alone?"
And Bhishma and Vidur and the Pandavas too wept aloud. Thus they reached the expansive banks of the Ganga where the bier was laid down. Guided by the priests, they concluded the funeral rites and set fire to the remains of the body. As the flames leapt up, Ambalika cried out in anguish, "Oh, my son! My son!" And witnessing the grief-stricken mother fall to the ground, the citizens wailed in deep sorrow. The distraught cry of Kunti moved the heart of even the birds and beasts, and made the wise Bhishma and Vidur sad. With tear-dimmed eyes, they, along with the Dhritarashtra, the Pandavas and the Kuru ladies, performed the last ceremony for the departed. The citizens were then consoled the distressed sons of Pandu, young and old alike, and gulfed in sorrow like the Pandavas, mourned with them for full 12 days. The Shraddha was completed by Bhishma and Kunti with a grand feast and lavish donations purified thus by rituals, the Bharats and the rest then returned to Hastinapur. Then my esteemed Guru, Vyas, came to Satyavati, his mother, and said,
"Our days of prosperity are on the wane. Days of corruption are creeping in, robbing the world of its glow. The wickedness of the Kauravas will bring destruction upon the world. Therefore, go into the forest and seek the peace through the practice of yoga."
Heeding the words of Vyasa, and with the approval of Bhishma, Satyavati, accompanied by Ambika and Ambalika, went into the forest. In due course, while engaged in profound meditation, the good woman attained mukti. Meanwhile, the Pandavas grew up in affluence in their father's palace and proved their superior strength even while at play with the sons of the Dhritarashtra. They excelled in running, in consuming food, and in scattering dust. Bhimsena defeated them all. He pulled their hair and, laughing all the while, made them fight among themselves. While the sons of the Dhritarashtra clambered up the trees to pluck fruit, Bhimsena would set the tree all a-tremble with a mighty kick, and down would come fruit pluckers and all. The 100 sons of the Dhritarashtra were no match for one Bhima. However, his display of rugged strength was prompted by his childish glee and not by ill will. But this obvious strength of Bhima aroused the hostility of Duryodhana, the eldest son of the Dhritarashtra, and he said to himself, "In might, Bhima excels us all. He will have to be removed by cunning. I shall throw him into the Ganga when he is asleep. I shall then imprison Yudhishthira and Arjuna and reign as the undisputed king." Resolute in his wicked thought, Duryodhana kept a sharp watch for an opportunity, and, O monarch, at length he set up an alluring camp for water sports at Pramankoti on the banks of Ganga. He had it adorned with rich cloth hanging and embellished with gay flags, and the cuisine there was equipped to serve food and drink of choice taste. And when all was completed, the crafty prince said to Pandavas, Let all of us go for some sport to the Ganga and Sylvian banks." When Yudhishthira agreed to it, the Pandavas and the sons of the Dhritarashtra proceeded to that spot, some in chariots and some on elephants. When they reached Pramankoti, they dismissed their attendants and entered the residence. They admired the pretty designs decorating the interior, and then they looked out of the window, opening upon well-laid gardens full of fragrant flowers and clear fountains and ponds decked with lotus blooms. After the Kauravas and their Pandavas had their full fill of pleasures, they took their turns at feeding each other with choice delicacies. Meanwhile, Duryodhana had already prepared heavily poisoned food to kill Bhimsena. Concealing his evil designs with sweet smiles, he went over to Bhima. and fed him freely with the poisoned fruit. Then all of them moved over to the river to amuse themselves in water. After a while, they came out of the clothes and dressed themselves in fresh clothes. Bhima had been more vigorous than the others in the water. So when he came out, he flung himself on the ground in sheer fatigue. And the strong poison and the soft river breeze lulled him into a deep slumber. Seeing this, Duryodhana bound him with strong reeds and rolled him down into the water. The unconscious Bhima sank down to the depths of the Naga kingdom. The Nagas attacked him by the thousands and bit him, releasing the deadly poison from their fangs. The snake poison acted as an antidote, and Bhima regained his senses. He snapped the reeds that bound him and killed the snakes by dashing them to the ground. The few who escaped fled for life and rushed to Vasuki, their king, and said, "Oh king, there is a man who has sunk to our land. We guessed that he was poisoned. He was fettered and inert when we saw him. He woke up when we bit him. Then he freed himself and attacked us. Please come and see who he is." Vasuki set out with his retinue. Among them was one named Aryaka, who was the grandfather of Kunti's father. When Aryaka saw his kinsman, he embraced him. Vasuki was pleased to know that Bhima was and asked Aryaka, "What can we do for him? Let us give him untold wealth and precious gems." Aryaka replied, "Of what price is wealth when he has earned your goodwill? Let this prince imbibe the essence in our possession, each draught of which will confer on him the strength of 1,000 elephants. Let him imbibe as much as he can." When Vasuki gave his assent, the serpents prepared Bhima for the ceremony. Then Bhima sat facing the east, ready to imbibe the essence. He finished the contents of one vessel at one gulp, and thus did he finish 8 of them, one after the other. Then he lay himself down on the special bed the Nagas had made for him. Meanwhile, after having had their surfeit of play, the Pandavas and the Kauravas left the camp. The Pandavas believed that Bhima had gone ahead of him, and Duryodhana was full of glee that Bhima was not with them. The honest Yudhishthira, O monarch, believed others to be as honest as himself. Therefore, when he reached the palace, he said to his mother, "We thought that Bhima was already here. Where is he? Has he not come back? Have you sent him on an errand? He was in deep sleep when we last saw him. Was it sleep or was he killed? I am worried." Hearing this, Kunti cried out in dismay, "I have not seen Bhima." Then she summoned Vidur and said, "Oh Vidur, Bhima is missing. All the others have come back. Duryodhana hates him and he is reckless and spiteful. His greed for the throne might have prompted him to murder my son." Vidur replied to this,
"O good woman, do not speak in this manner. If you accuse Duryodhana, he may turn on you your other sons also. A long life has been predicted for your son. Therefore, Bhima will certainly return."
The wise Vidur reassured Kunti thus and returned home, but Kunti was still tormented by anxiety. Meanwhile, Bhima rose from his sleep on the 8th day, all the mightier for the potent essence which he had imbibed. And the Nagas said to him, "You have acquired the strength of 1,000 elephants. You will be invincible in battle. Perform your ablutions and go back to your brothers who are distressed at your absence." Bhima, pure after the bath, wearing white clothes and decked in ornaments and garlands, ate food served by the Nagas. Then he accepted and returned the homage and benediction of the Nagas. Then, guided by the Nagas, he ascended through the waters and then reached the very gardens where he had amused himself, and the Nagas vanished from the scene. The mighty Bhima then ran in haste to his mother at Hastinapur. Moved by the close affection for each other, the Pandavas hailed their good fortune. Then Bhima recounted all that had happened to him, the good and the bad, during his Naga episode. Then Yudhishthira said, "Do not speak of this incident to anyone. Let it be confined to ourselves." The Pandavas thenceforth led a prudent life, and in this they were helped by advices from within. Duryodhana persisted in plotting the death of the Pandavas, but his attempts were foiled by Yuyutsu, Dhritarashtra's son, by a Vaishya woman, who in his love for the Pandavas cautioned them in time. Meanwhile, as the princes were whiling away their time in idle pursuits, they were placed under the tutelage of Gautam, whose birth had occurred in a clump of reed and who was also known as Kripa. And thus ends the fourth session of our rendering of Vaishampayan's narration of Vyasa's immortal Ityasa, the Mahabharata. Stay tuned for our next chapter, which is Mahabharata chapter 5, and it is called Enter Drona. Please subscribe to this channel, like, share this video. Thank you.